Welcome to the Restoration Group podcast, where we're sometimes silly, but always serious about investing in Oklahoma City leaders that desire to integrate their Christian faith into their business. I am your host, Clay Steves. Today, on this episode, I'm joined by both of my co-hosts, Aaron Scott and Michael Mead. What's up, team?
Great grammar.
Great grammar.
It's
really
excellent.
Starting strong today.
Excellent grammar.
Kicking it off. I appreciate that. How are you today? Oh my
gosh.
This is
so good.
strong.
We're feeling middle school awkward today.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. How would you describe
Middle
it?
school awkward.
I'm going to agree with that. I can't exactly say why, but yes, I'm going to agree.
Great. We'll push through it. Middle school. Here we go. Today's episode continues our 8-week series, which is really impressive. 8-week series every other week, right? Of talking through a principle from our integrated business guide. And today's principle wait, let's do this. Michael, where can somebody get the integrated business guide right now if they want to go check this out?
Yeah, so it's linked in the show notes.
Okay.
So whatever you're listening to, there's a link you can click on.
Yeah.
You can also just go to our website, restorationgroup.co/integrated business guide. There's a link on there as well. You can download it for free.
I was about to say, how much does it cost? But Michael just did it for
It
you.
is
How much does it cost,
$3.99.
Aaron, how much does it cost?
Michael got put on the spot to like test and see if he knew.
Yeah.
And like, great job, you made it.
Well-
I'm fine to not get tested.
Okay. Michael, how much does it cost?
$3.99.
There it
There it
is.
is.
Free. I love it. I love
With
it.
a coupon code free.
Still free.
It's free.
It's still free.
I really
Fantastic.
want to just say my Cash App handle and see if like, actually you can Cash App us at whatever.
I love
and
it.
just
I
see
love
how
it.
much money I get. Probably not going to work, but worth a shot.
I like it. Put that in the show notes. Today's principle is embracing pain. Maybe that's why we like stalled right there and got really awkward middle school.
Agreed.
Embracing
Middle school is
pain.
full of awkward pain.
Awkward
That's
pain
true.
all
Yeah.
over the place. And okay, silly, serious. We talk about both all the time. I want to shift serious really quick. And because we're going to talk about embracing pain and like serious caveat, I am not talking about unhealthy or like abusive pain. So I just want a disclaimer that
Great
we are
disclaimer.
not discussing, like if you're in an unhealthy, like abusive relationship, if you have an abusive dynamic at work, at home, spiritual, like any of those dynamics, that is not what we are talking about today. And so the principles would not apply. This principle would not apply. And we would strongly encourage you to seek help. Like find somebody to help you bring that up, because we are not talking about leaning into that type of pain and staying in an unhealthy spot. We are talking about something completely separate from that.
Yeah. I
But
would just
Adam-
say if you're listening and you're in a situation and you're like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Then talk to someone about
Yeah.
it. Don't try to discern that on your own. Find a trusted person that you can just ask, hey, what do you think about this? Is this healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah, that's good. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Just glad we made the disclaimer. That's great.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story real quick. I used to have a coach named Gordon. Man, he was a great coach. He would tell me things I did not want to hear, and it was incredibly painful all the time. And so in this season that I'm specifically remembering, I had been having a tough leadership dynamic. Okay, it had an unhealthy dynamic at work, a team member that was really causing a lot of challenges with their teammates. But we talk about patience. We've had a previous episode about patience, about really applying that principle. And I was trying as a leader. And so Gordon would talk to me about this subject over and over. And we'd meet and have a monthly coaching call. And I'd talk about the challenges of the meetings, the dynamics, the interpersonal things. And then I'd go try to apply some stuff. Nothing would be any different. The next month we'd meet again. We'd talk on the phone and I'd bring it up again and like be venting and griping. And this went on for months and months. And I was convincing myself I was being patient. And one day I'm on the phone with him and he's like, Clay, he just cuts me off mid-call.
I like this guy.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm confident you would love it. He cuts me off and he's like, Clay, we're done talking about this. Over and over again, every single month, this is all you talk to me about. We are done talking about this. You can call me. We can talk every single month if you want, but I'm never talking to you about this again because you are working really hard instead of making a hard decision. And I was like, oh, come on. And really, it's this principle that I was unwilling to do, which was embracing a really painful, hard choice for me that I needed to make as a leader. And I was doing everything I could. I was being flexible. I was being patient. I was trying over and over as opposed to just embracing the pain of a really tough call as a leader. And so that really was where this principle was born from. For me as a leader, remembering this, because here's why I think this matters. Okay, here's why. Pain is inevitable. Isn't that exciting? Isn't that just great content
Let's
to throw
just
out there?
End the episode there.
It's really encouraging.
Isn't it? Right? Isn't that how you
Yeah.
feel? And I'm not, like, we're being silly. I'm not being sadistic. I'm not being like legalistic here, but it is just a truth. We live in a broken world. It is painful. I've even heard you say the phrase or talk about choose your pain. In other words, pain is inevitable and coming. We are just choosing which type of pain we want. Yes?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can only avoid it for so long if you are in the avoidant mode, like I was. Here's the other why. I think growth and maturation comes out of pain. Right? We've talked a lot about John 15 before on this podcast, and even personally as a group, pruning and cutting back. Growth comes from this cutting back, right? And here's the thing when we talk about pain, the opposite of pain we could call comfort, right? Those often go opposite of each other. I believe comfort is actually damaging to us. In the same way, like Henry Cloud will use the example, Dr. Henry Cloud, excuse me, would use the harmful and hurt dynamic about like a tooth, right? So like the sugar we eat, or maybe just going to bed early and not brushing our teeth, that's for the middle school boy in all of us for not brushing. Yeah, Michael just made a face.
Erin does not have a middle school boy inside of her. Middle school
True
girls can
story.
struggle to brush their teeth as well.
Okay, well, maybe so. But right, the harmful thing often feels good to us in the moment. Again, eating too much sugar, not taking care of ourselves as we need to, which might lead to needing to do something painful that is actually very healthy and good to do, like in that example, extract a tooth, right? Because if you did not take care of your teeth well enough, if you ate too much junk food, that would be comfortable, fun, nice in the moment, but yet ended up causing great damage that the pain was needed to create a healthy spot. So those are just two examples. I think pain is inevitable, and I believe maturity or growth comes often from pain. What about you guys? How would you discern, and I kind of teased it with you there, Mikey, how would you discern between healthy and unhealthy pain at work specifically? So shifting to our space of work.
Yeah. I do think it's complicated. So there's not a real clear, at least from my view, a real clear answer. I think it requires a lot of awareness to just be reflective, and really just what that means is creating the space to reflect about something and garner awareness. And I also would suggest awareness is best gained in community and relationships. And so having some trusted people, ideally at work, if you don't have trusted people in your work environment, that might be something else to look at, that you can invite into that journey with you. And to build your discernment, you kind of have to say, hey, I think this is healthy pain. Erin, this is what I'm going through. What do you think? Okay, you think it's healthy too. I trust you. So maybe I was right about that. Or maybe there's a disconnect between what I think and what Erin thinks. And then maybe we go get a third perspective, and just kind of building your ability to trust yourself and discerning it. I think just takes time and patience and awareness that leads to pain.
What about you, E?
As far as like healthy versus unhealthy pain, I don't know that I have a ton to add, but I just want to add to what Michael said, but I just want to reinforce again the disclaimer given at the beginning that that in no way are we encouraging the staying in an unhealthy situation or like just push through that pain or like I think it is really complicated because often the if there is an unhealthy environment and maybe that is, you know, has been going on for a long time or is really prevalent, then I think it's hard to identify. And so in that case, that's probably the one difference I would say is I would actually encourage getting an outside of your work environment counsel, because if your work environment in and of itself has that woven into its culture, like maybe an unhealthy culture that perhaps the mantra is just like, we all lean into this pain, and, you know, maybe not that explicitly, but you know what I'm saying? Like that it's just kind of like, this is what we do. This is who we are. And you're starting to like have this question mark of like, is this okay? Then asking a coworker might not, because it's going to be, you know, well, yeah, like let's rally together. We all do this thing. So I don't think anything's wrong at all with asking a coworker, but I would probably encourage one of each, of like find a trusted outside person who's got an outside perspective, who can look and say, actually, like, that sounds totally fine. We do something similar at my work environment or whatever. Or like, okay, that sounds really crazy and like probably not great. Or like, I can't believe. And sometimes I think that's jarring for us to hear something that seems so obvious to someone else on the outside, but on the inside, it was like, oh, this was totally normal. I thought this was fine. And then you hear like, oh my gosh, like that was super off base. And you just maybe don't know because you're in the bubble. You're in the unhealthy environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the example Clay shared was Gordon, who was an outside coach that Clay was investing in to be that voice. And so that's a great insight, that the outside voice that is still trusted and has some context, but isn't deep in the woods with you.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
You think spouse is a good spot for that? Or are you thinking someone who is even outside of that close to you?
I think spouse is a great addition, like a yes to all.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I would maybe my 2 cents is like ask a bunch of people. I don't know. Take an Instagram poll while you're at it. Like, but I think spouse or significant other in some sense, like I think that's a great place, absolutely, because they probably have insight to how your work environment is affecting you at home, that you often are blinded to. But I also think that the other side of that is that can put your spouse in a tricky situation, or just that can cause tension as well. So I wouldn't leave them as like the sole decision maker, because I think that can put some unneeded pressure.
Yeah.
But a great additional voice in context. Again, I think I'm just a fan of like
more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
So when your boss sees your Instagram poll, it is like, is my work culture toxic and unhealthy? It's
here's a direct quote from my boss. What do you guys think? So
see if they read my post on Insta. That's right.
Probably not that, but I would say the more the merrier, yes. But I wanted to give the disclaimer that like I think because I have not done that in the past, like that's probably a mistake that I made in the past.
Meaning you just shouldered it. You didn't go ask for outside perspective.
Yeah, or even if I was a little bit testing the waters, it was like, oh no, it's cool, everything's cool.
Okay.
And then it's like out of my own like pride, like I don't want to look like an idiot or something. So I don't ask for other counsel. I don't ask for other insight or the convincing yourself that everything's fine.
Yeah.
And so that I'm saying a lot of that from a standpoint of like, if I could go back, I would do it different.
Yeah.
I was just going to add counselors into the mix. We talk about the value of having a counselor. And in this conversation, I think that is another really great, safe, trusted, private place to process something about pain, healthy, unhealthy. Their ability to speak into that would be useful.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And we have said this before, but just to reinforce it, like, and I know the three of us are comfortable with me saying this, all of us utilize that individually, separately, different people, even because that creates a good healthy boundary, but we all have that outlet and space to be able to talk to a counselor.
That's right.
Yes.
We have not yet done couples counseling together.
Have you invited me, Michael? Like, I was going to say.
I've worked with Kara to get it on your schedule. I was going to surprise you.
Next episode will be just me because you guys are working on yourself in couples.
Stop it. Okay, let's shift to the integrating of. So let's talk about the healthy pain aspect.
Yeah.
And I teased a little bit earlier, and I want you guys to talk on that. But integrating your faith, right? So again, Christians who want to bring their faith to work, how is embracing healthy pain a principle of integrating your faith at work? Michael?
Yeah, so I could see me stealing Erin's thunder a little bit here, just because she's like
Erin, would you like to go first? She's drinking, yes!
She's our...
terrible timing.
She's our chief people person, and my answer is about people.
Ooh.
I just think that when you're talking about integrating your faith, like the thing we are called to do, in addition to loving God, is loving people.
Come on.
And people, including myself, are so messy. And I think generally pain in the workplace comes from relationships with people. And so I think it's of the utmost importance, and it's all motivated out of that place that we are called to love people.
Yeah.
And when we do that well, it's going to lead to pain.
Could things that are painful for me be different than things that are painful for you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, even from like a personality perspective, we talk about the Enneagram and the fear of an 8, which is what I am, is being controlled. And that's not the fear of a 7.
Nope.
And so that might not be something that feels painful and challenging if I sense someone is trying to control me.
Yeah.
That maybe that's not the same for you.
Are crucial combos painful for you guys? Like to have like a direct, blunt feedback to somebody?
It's a no for me, but it's actually because I view that as one of the best ways to love someone.
That's incredibly painful for me. Like giving like direct feedback is so incredibly painful for me. And for the two of you, it's like, yeah, that's just straightforward what you do because I love you. Right?
Yeah. To Michael's point, and I never want to do a blanket statement like all 8s feel this way, but I would agree in that is how I can feel more connected to someone is that we cared enough about each other and the subject matter to talk it out. Because to me, I can interpret a lack of that or a lack of passion or a lack of talking about it as a lack of interest, like a lack of care for either me or whatever the situation is or whatever, which I know is not always the case for other people, but that's how I can interpret it.
Yeah.
So yeah, having a really direct, like straightforward conversation is a really positive thing for me.
So then to understand what is painful for someone, we would have to listen to them. We'd have to have awareness, and then we'd have to create group awareness,
We'd
right?
Have to know them.
You have to know them. That's what I was gonna, you got to know. You got to know them.
Yeah.
We have 6 people on our leadership team, and even though Aaron and I are both 8s, and John Mark is an 8, we're all different.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You, Jared, Mason are different.
Yep.
And so you, as the senior leader, I think you do a good job of studying us individually to know what makes us different.
Yeah.
And so you just have to know your people, and that comes through relationship, which leads to pain.
Yeah.
And beautiful things too. But
Aaron, what do you see? What are ways that you can embrace healthy pain, like as a principle to integrating your faith?
Well, I want to piggyback on where Michael just ended of knowing your people. I think that is incredible, and I would encourage everyone to do that. But I think with that comes great responsibility too, because then you have subconscious or consciously or unconsciously.
Both consci.
Both consci. You have the ability to even cause pain for someone else on a deeper level. The more you know them, and the more they feel known by you. I mean, I don't know why this example just came in my head, but a funny story for another episode of the day that a stranger at the stoplight, rolled down their window and yelled some obscenities at me. That was like jarring because it's like, what is happening? And it was like, wow, that was really weird. For a few minutes, it kind of threw me off. By the time I got to the office, it was like a funny story that I told, and it wasn't a big deal. But if you were to roll at me, come in the office and say the same things to me, it's like that hurts a lot worse because you know me and you and I think the more your people, your team, whether that's you're the leader or you're just part of a team, whatever the case is, I think knowing other people shows how much you value them, but it also leaves people exposed in a potentially very healthy way to feel even more pain if it's like, I know that you hate this thing, but I did this thing anyway.
Yeah.
That is a potential risk there. I think it's worth it to know your people.
Yeah.
But you have to be really careful.
Yeah. You guys got any other thoughts on that topic?
Yeah. I don't see any other way besides what Aaron just described. And even in the face of the risk, it's still worth it. But
yeah,
it's risky.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's shift to the practical. Like if somebody's like, okay, great. Like what are specific lenses or areas that I can embrace healthy pain? So one area that I think is, I'm not going to say it's universal, but for everyone, different things are difficult. But I'd say the making difficult decisions, making hard decisions is somewhere that we have to embrace pain. And what's hard for me is different than what's hard for you. But nonetheless, making hard decisions is a part of, I think, following Jesus, because we have to make sacrifice here on earth. And then if we're going to go apply it at work, I think it's the same principle. So I've got an example for us. A couple of years ago, we had a tough dynamic at one of our companies. So at Habakkuk, we got terminated by one of our manufacturer partners, right? So that's the people that would provide products to our distribution company. And there was nothing out of line with their contracts, meaning their behavior within the contract we had. So there was no illegal activity between us as two companies. But there was some pretty onerous post-contract prohibitions on us. Like we couldn't compete. We had a strong non-compete. And so we were in this season of trying to have integrity, hold that line. And at the same time, I have to be direct that we had some employees leave our company, and they also had an agreement with us that had some, I'm going to say, reciprocal post-employment obligations that we expected of them, and they were violating this agreement. And so we were in this weird tension of, we're holding ourselves in this one place. And I'm not saying this is a righteous, like, look at what we did. I'm saying it is, and this was hard. This was incredibly painful because we were holding ourselves to our obligations while some of our team members, it was hurting us business-wise. So we're in the business space here. This was hurting us financially on both fronts. Mm-hmm. They were violating. So there was an injustice happening to us. And the pain that we embraced was choosing to say, we're going to, I'm not going to say be okay with, but we're going to stay in the tension of this injustice, because man, that was hard. And it was so painful. And I just look back at that and I'm like, whew. But I see that as a principle of embracing pain in that season to like apply who we say we are and integrate our faith. You guys were here that season. Any thoughts or memories out of that time?
Yeah, I just think pragmatically from a business sense, what we did made no sense. It was almost foolishness, honestly.
By the world's eyes.
By the world's view, from a business perspective. It's like, you guys are idiots. What are you doing? I mean, really. But exactly. Like, we want to be markedly different than the world. And so, I'm with you. It was a really painful season. And I think even people listening to you would be like, why did you do that? Even people that are following Christ. And I would just say, like, sit with that, and if it doesn't make sense to you, just let that challenge you a little bit and think about it. And I don't want to just say what we did was right as like the only right option.
Right.
It is what we felt like was the decision that was honoring to God in that season.
Yeah.
And I think we landed there, again, looping back from a lot of different counsel. I know as a leadership team, we talked a lot about what should we do, what should we not do. I know you were talking to outside counsel as far as like, even from like a legal perspective, from a coaching perspective. I know you and Kirsten talked about it. So looping back to that, gathering a lot of outside counsel. And it would be really cool if our super holy story ended with like, and then the manufacturer came back and was like, we're so sorry. We want to work with you again, and we're going to pay you twice as much.
Yes. Spoiler, did that happen?
No. And that's just an interesting part of, I think the motivation behind, okay, am I going to choose to embrace this pain? Am I going to choose to stand in the tension of this situation or not? The motivation can't be that I'm trying to create this great story and force God's hand. Of
like transactionally, we do this, we get something on the business front in return.
Yes. If I do this like super holy thing, I'm not claiming that we did a super holy thing, but in a hypothetical situation, if I do this thing that seems like it's honoring to God, then I'm expecting, and I think we talked about this on another recent episode, like your expectation of something. And so I'm expecting some sort of return from God, financially, for the business, even like a pat on the back morally, like, I don't know, like whatever your expectation is, I think you got to let go of that, because that's not, the Bible doesn't talk about that. That's what is the return on that. It talks about it pruning our character and who we are, not, fulfilling our hopes or growing our business or anything like that. So again, no, that did not happen.
What other ways do you guys see it practically applied, this principle of embracing pain?
I don't know that this is exactly answering your question, but I kind of sticking where we were on the thought of making tough choices. The first story that you shared earlier with your outside coach, it was just something interesting that I hadn't thought about until you were telling the story, which was like, as far as pain goes, when you were maybe, no offense, but not choosing to embrace the pain of like, do the hard thing, have the hard conversation. I wonder if you looked back, are there other people that were experiencing pain because you were unwilling to embrace this hard thing?
Unequivocally, yes.
I did not prep you for this.
No, you didn't. No, but that is the truth, is that because I was unwilling to embrace it, I was forcing other people to live in a toxic, unhealthy situation. So thus I became the problem, because I was unwilling to embrace that pain. You're 1,000% right. In the day I did embrace it, the team changed. I mean, everybody else, because all of a sudden that weight was off of them. Yeah. And because of, I was willing to lean into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, you did not prep me for that, but that is true.
Sucker punch.
Maybe you had to embrace the pain of that question.
Yeah. I did. Yeah. What about you? Practical application.
Yeah, I think that creating an environment as the senior leader, or if you're leading a team, of feedback, and specifically people giving feedback to you. I think it's really easy for businesses to be like, we have a feedback culture, and that means me giving
as the
you
boss,
feedback.
I give you feedback.
But really creating, and Clay, I think you model this really well for us, where you are always leading the way and inviting feedback upwards from the people you lead. Anyone in our organization can do that. We had a conversation a week or two ago where I was sharing some things that I was processing about our working relationship that were challenging for you to hear. We didn't explicitly talk about it being painful for you, but it was something that wasn't the first time you had heard it, which means other people you've led have shared it. And that's painful. But you create that space and environment for the people you lead to share things about you that might be painful to hear, but that will help edify you and grow your character. Like Aaron's saying, it's much more about the person you're becoming and the character you develop than anything else.
Yeah, that. So feedback culture, legitimate, and upstream feedback.
Yeah.
Being willing to receive it, difficult decisions. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Final closing things on embracing pain before we wrap this up? Are you guys about to like give me hard feedback as we sit here? Or
So the reason we brought you here today, Clay,
the reason we put the camera on.
been meaning to tell you this for a long time.
I don't think that's the feedback culture you're talking about. World, watch us do this.
Yeah, we should do another episode on that. That can be, because I think that's very much a part of this, but that can go wrong really fast too. It's a very fine line.
I'm sure it'd go viral though. I'm sure if that all we cared about was growth, like that's the kind of stuff we should do, right?
Especially if you cry.
Ooh, they'll auto tune it though, and like anyway.
Okay.
A whole different deal.
Bring us home, Clay.
He's like, land the plane. Land the plane. Okay, I've got a quote before I read the verse to close this episode out, and it's a Julius Caesar quote. Yeah, we do classical education in my house, and so I love me some classical quotes. It is easier to find men who will volunteer to die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. And I still think that rings true today, is that it is easier to die or we'll just walk away from something to just stay in what is a pruning, refining, healthy pain. To be formed into, and in this case, very specifically, who God is calling you to be in your workplace, right, as a follower of Christ. And then the verse to close our episode is from Hebrews 12, 5 and 6. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord. That sounds painful, by the way. The discipline of the Lord. Nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastises every son whom he receives. Thank you for joining us this week. We genuinely are thankful every time you tune in. And until next week, choose life. Thanks for tuning into our show. If you want to learn more about how you can integrate your faith into your business, download our integrated business guide for free by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.